If everyone did one journey together at the same time, the next day, child trafficking would be gone, poverty would be gone, war would be gone. Because at the very same moment, all of us would understand, one, we are all one. We're always connected to source. We're never alone. Love is all there is. Jesus Christ, like tell me one pharmaceutical medicine that'll teach us all of that in one sitting. That's the beauty of what psilocybin or medicinal mushrooms do.
Welcome to the Multiverse, where we believe that mushrooms can actually save the world. Each week, we'll be meeting with thought leaders and experts to extract the best insights and stories across everything from functional fungi, psychedelic medicine, and so much more. Thanks for listening. Step into the multiverse with us. Welcome back, everybody, to Into the Multiverse. Today is a very exciting day because we have one of my favorite people in the entire world and one of the smartest, most influential people in wellness, Dr. Christian Gonzalez. You do a lot of things, so I'll let you kind of give an overview of your official title. To start, you want to do that?
You see the deep breath that I took? Because I'm about to just blurt it all out.
Do it. It's a long sentence.
Well, I'm a naturopathic doctor. That's the official title. That's the degree of which I graduated medical school with. And I practiced a lot when I came out of school. And that was in the context of cancer and environmental medicine, a lot of breast cancer, a lot of young women who were just diagnosed. And then that transformed into having my foot half into like social media and podcasting / half still into seeing patients, but through telemedicine. And then that fully transformed where I took a deep dive as an educator. And being an educator aligned much more with the unique gifts that we've all been given. And my gift is just wanting to teach people. And also, I guess the way I communicate is relatable and people resonate with it. So it's been the most rewarding thing I've ever done to give freely and really out of just like, here, this is stuff we can do and change our lives. And wow. And it's interesting because the things that have been working for me through time and over the years, I've put out very transparently to people and it's been working for them. So I'm like, whoa, it's like we're healing together our own physical, mental, emotional space. So I guess I'm an educator now.
So before we even dive into what you do now, one of the most interesting things about you that I think a lot of people don't get to hear about, and I think that's just by and large like the nature of how we all run our lives. We're focused on the present and where we're going and what we're working on. But one of the most interesting things about you is that you come from the Jersey Shore. You had a totally different life. And like Andre, our dear friend who's helping us produce this podcast, said to me before we started the show, you can take the doctor out of the Jersey Shore, but you can't take the Jersey Shore out of the doctor.
It's true.
And you've had one of the most transformational, last decades of life of anyone I know. And your story is just so wild. And I think that everything that you're doing now actually comes from that place. Mm-hmm. So can you rewind us? Take us back to the Jersey Shore. How did you get from there, dating Sammy Sweetheart? Am I allowed to say that? Dating Sammy Sweetheart at the Jersey Shore to now having one of the most influential wellness podcasts in the world and making such an important impact on so many people.
This is a luxury of having a conversation with one of your best friends who knows you, right? Because no one has ever asked me that question. And I love just coming on shows and being fully transparent, and it's part of my story. And for many years, I resisted letting that be a chapter in my book because there was a lot of irresponsibility. There was drinking, there was partying, there was a lot of egoic sponsored behaviors. But it was so beautiful in relation to me looking back and going, whoa, like that was kind of a different life and a different person. But yes, I was raised in New Jersey and I went to Rutgers University, which was a party school in itself. And I studied really hard, but I also partied. And then Jersey Shore came, and that was just in itself a whole experience because every summer it'd be really exciting. Come February, we're already looking for houses. And March, we were signing the lease on the house. We're waiting for Memorial Day. There's people counting down because literally that's when summer starts, and it's just so much fun, right? In many ways, I look back and I go, You know what it was? It was just community. I felt that there was groups of people with a common interest, whether it be partying, whether it be the beach, whether it be dancing. It was just all of us going to one place to find community. And I didn't really know it back then. But it was an experience because we just partied all summer, danced all summer, ate irresponsibly, but all worked out because working out was really big in the culture. And there is an interesting phenomenon on the Jersey Shore. It attracts and by Jersey Shore I mean like Jersey Shore, like the show, not the locals who just live in the shore of Jersey, but like really like
the one we all know about.
The one we all know. And it was interesting because when that aired first on TV, I was deep in the thick of things. I was hanging out there. I was going all weekend. I knew almost everyone on the show. I would see them all when I was out, when they were filming. I was on one of the episodes because the camera pulled up on me because, as you mentioned, I was close with Sammy.
We got to resurface that for our future friend, Hank.
We will. So, like, I was in it. And the interesting thing is, and this may stand true for many people listening in their town, it's very normal to them. I guess it's a practice and understanding that, like, what's normal to us becomes really normal. But many people from the outside can look in and be like, the hell is going on there? Because when I watched it the first time around, I was like, oh, cool. Now, like, this is normal. This is what people do around here. These are personalities of like men and women. And then I watched it back in 2016. I rewatched it with my friend and I was like, holy shit. I go, this is how people really saw New Jersey back then. I was like, because then I started expanding and meeting more people in California and all throughout the country. And I was like, that bubble is not how the rest of the world is. And the major part that I took from it is that attitude of like, here I am. And I bring it a lot into the way I research companies. Like, if a company is not going to be transparent or not do right by us, that sort of like fiery attitude that is present in most people who go to the Jersey Shore, which is why it's such a volatile place many times, especially when there's alcohol involved. But still that fire of like, okay, well, you know, the New York, New Jersey is going to come out in me, you know? And I just do that because it's important that companies are doing right by us. And when they're purposely not transparent, hiding something, developing a really crappy product, and we're giving it to our kids, Jersey Shore Christian comes out. I got my spike hair and my muscles on and I'm ready to go when I'm on that podcast. So that's sort of the story with that.
So also I'm picturing you now on all of your Instagram reviews, like totally doing an outfit change when you find a company that doesn't do right by a customer, totally have an outfit change, and then you change your accent a little, and that's how you review it.
Headband.
Yeah, the full thing.
Armani t-shirt, tight jeans, gold chains. I should do an ode to the Jersey Shore for Halloween at least.
100%. Okay, so and I do think what's interesting about what you said, if you're so inundated in a culture, you know, I just went back home to St. Louis, totally different environment. Energy is so different, the food, the conversation, everything. But I remember at a time in my life where that was my world. And then when you step out of your world, you can really see things accurately. So I think that's really interesting. And it's also amazing that you took yourself out of that world and then had this whole expansion. So close the gap a little bit. You were at the Jersey Shore. You developed a lot of your roots that still come out to this day. But how did you go from that to becoming, you know, the person that you are today, learning? I mean, there was a lot that happened in between there. And we are, you know, because this is a mushroom podcast, we are going to go back through your story and then kind of figure out how mushrooms have played a part in it, both functional and psychedelic. But just to start, close the gap.
I think it was around 2014, where that was the last summer share that I had. You know, that was the last beach house that we had. One, particularly because when I would go to the bars and clubs, I saw a lot of people that I didn't know. It was nice because that's the thing, community. Like, you go back every year and you're like, hey, I know the bartender, I know like the bouncer, I know the owner of the club, and all my friends are here. It was really nice because that's a sense of community. But around like 2014, 2015, I didn't know anyone. And then I started seeing people who were my brother's friends, and my brother's 5 years younger than me. And I was like, ooh, I'm like that second year senior now. I'm like a 6-year college guy now. I gotta go. This is the last one. So simultaneously, my body wasn't taking like the poor sleep, the poor eating, the drinking, all of those things that really weigh on you at some point. Oh man, they were like really weighing on me. And I was already like in school, learning more about the body, starting to honor my body a lot more, right? Because I knew what it was to eat healthy from the sense of like fitness, like macronutrients, but I didn't know much about quality. So right when I was like sort of shifting away from that summer party mode version of me, I was learning more about how to honor the body in terms of quality. So then I sort of completely shifted, and I tried to go out and be social the way I used to. And I talk a lot about alcohol, especially recently. But my body was like, no, 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 no. This ain't you anymore. And the healthier I got and started putting more nutrients and more quality in my body, even more dramatic were the effects when I would party. So the shift started happening just by virtue of my body going, I'm getting healthier, and you keep throwing gasoline and a match every weekend on me. Stop. So it started lowering and lowering. And then by the time I moved to California, the culture was completely different. The culture, I mean, you go to New York, the culture is every weekend drinking, right? That's the drinking. It's eat, food, and drink culture.
And then you dropped into California sober.
I dropped into California and I was like, what is everyone doing here? Like, okay, you guys ready to go out on the weekend? No one really wanted to go out like that, or like everyone stayed home, like, and it just shifted. But I knew I was in the right place. So that's sort of like how that whole life part of me started dying off, and then a new chapter opened, especially when I crossed the border and coming to California. I just felt an energy shift, and I go, it's different here. And over the years, and that was in 2016, over the years, I stopped drinking 4 years ago. I would have sparingly some drinks. You and I tried to have hard kombucha one time, and that didn't work.
We drank half a June Shine and then forgot.
We tried to have a June Shine, and we forgot we were drinking the June Shine. But I hope that maybe we can drink June Shine one day together.
We should finish a full June Shine together one day.
We should finish a full June Shine. But that was that. That was that, and that was a transition.
And so simultaneously you started, you were in school to become a functional medicine doctor. And can you talk a little bit about that journey and kind of what caused you to build, the following that you have today is large in part because of the clients that you treated, and you developed this whole passion for debunking a lot of the products that are out there in the world too. But can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. Through school, as I mentioned, like I'm starting to learn more about nutrients, more about quality, more about the body, right? When you really go through medicine and you start appreciating the body, I don't think we ever take the time to take a bird's eye view and go, what? The body is so sophisticated, elegant, exquisite, complicated. We will never be able to even put a finger on understanding the body because its workings are from not anything we can ever understand. We can never reduce the body's explanation into a paragraph, which is incredible. Because when I was in school, I was like, it seems like there is like this powerful station head that's pressing all these buttons. Oh, we need to heal that leg. Do. Okay. Oh, we need to bring more energy to the brain, because it's just shocking to me how seamless the body can operate and how much we don't look or appreciate that. And every single day, it's something that I'm trying to bring reverence to, is like, let me take 5 minutes with my body and just be like, hey, damn, like, thank you, body. You're conscious, and your ability to heal is incredible. And you've brought me this far. I love that. So once I started really seeing that, understanding that, it just became another level to understanding health. And really, after school and when I started my residency in oncology, that's when I started seeing a lot of really sick patients, the sickest of the sick. And I did a few oncology shifts in school, so I had a few cancer patients. But man, what it was to see like in the day, maybe 20 cancer patients for 2 years, that made a really major mark on me, because one, I saw how sick we are. And two, I saw the disconnect in conventional cancer and how there's a massive bridge that we're missing, right? Because if we understood cancer, then cancer wouldn't be the problem as it is right now, but we don't understand it. We're not even close. We're developing technologies, but the technologies are not getting to the root of it. They're simply treating the body's manifestation of what cancer is. And cancer is the body's manifestation. The body creates cancer for a reason. We're not looking at the reason. We're just looking at the result, which is silly, but that's the way we approach all disease conventionally. So that's when I started seeing that, I was like, there's so much more to cancer than we ever can think of, because it's not just diet. It's not just alcohol. It's not just lack of exercise. And it's not just stress. It's so much more. That created the shift. And then that's when I started learning more about environmental medicine, how we interact with our environment. What are we breathing in, right? What are we drinking every single day? What are we putting in our skin? Then I started seeing a big pillar, and an archaeologist who just like steps on a little bit of like, is that a bone? And then uses his little duster and is like, what the fuck? What is this? And then it's a T-Rex. And I'm like, oh God. So that's sort of how it was unfolding for that. And then over the years, not just with cancer, but it led me to really go deeper into our deepest parts of us. And I saw that, like, I was thinking of this one patient back in 2015. And I knew environmentally she was really sick. She was a hairdresser and she had tattoos from her neck to her toes. And she was 30 years old, right? And at the time I was 33 and I was like, this girl's younger than me. She has a newborn and she has stage 4 breast cancer. It's crazy. So we did so much to put her in remission because she did go in remission, which was incredible, right? But we did it integratively. It wasn't just me. We did a whole team approach. There's one patient really, really didn't start getting better until we looked at her relationship with her dad when she was a kid and how she never forgave him for something that happened when she was like 4 or 5 and it stuck with her and it sponsored her whole life experience, which was literally the constant state of stress that she was in. So my passion, and I just thought about her a few years ago, that it's opened a door and led me to another archaeological find. And it's the connection between those deeply rooted traumas, which are sponsoring or telling our nervous system that still we're not safe, and how we can address those, have the body release it, and come back to our authenticity. And authenticity has been, for me, aside from morning rituals, the most important thing for your health. Before nutrition, before exercise, before even breath work, before all those things, you have to understand what authenticity is and understand if you're connected to it. Because if you're not, then you're putting a stress on your system, low grade, every single day you're not releasing and being and expressing your highest self. For me, I don't believe disease can exist when you are your highest self. I don't. I think that when you are in that vibration of health, the body, there's no such thing. Everything is just flowing and flowing. Unfortunately, everyone isn't, but that's okay because now we can bring awareness to it. And that's been where my career has been bringing me now.
I think that's a really good place to bring in mushrooms. And the reason why is because what you just painted a picture of is how most people interact with wellness. Like when I first started to explore wellness, I was like, it's movement. It's what you put in your body. And then after people kind of feel like they can conquer that, I know so many people. I used to be one of those people that was physically healthy, right? Like I worked out, I put the right things in my body, but then there's this entire other, like you said, archaeological find of there's a whole other half of the dinosaur, if not more than that, that is community wellness and spiritual wellness and mindfulness. And like, that's why, mushrooms specifically have been such great teachers for me and a lot of people I know, because they're such a layer. I think they're the layer underneath a lot of wellness. Like, so many people interact and they interact with their health without realizing that it's connected to their brain. And you and I were just having a conversation on the way back from Malibu the other night. And something you said that really stuck with me is, a lot of your content, and if anyone follows Dr. G on Instagram, Dr.Gonzalez, right? Yeah, follow him. You're starting now to talk more about spirituality and authenticity and like these more, heady concepts that isn't, what chemicals to look out for in your food. You definitely built your following in that way. But so many people are resonating with that message, large in part because of COVID and everything that the world went through in the last year. People are really starting to look inwards for the first time. And, it's been a transformational year for a lot of people in that way. But it's so important. And so why, to spin the conversation into mushrooms, why they've been so powerful, both functional and psychedelic, is there's such a representation for so many people. When people go and do a psilocybin experience, they come away saying, we're all connected and we're all one. That is the truth that comes out of most experiences. That's the experiences that I've had, that so many of the people in our community have had.
Even the first time they do it.
Even the first time. And in a very similar way, functional mushrooms, they just start to make your body work. We were just having a conversation about this earlier today. They make your body feel and flow, and they adapt to what you need. And there's just so much wisdom in the fungi kingdom. And so my question to you is, how do you think mushrooms kind of play a role in everything that you're working on and teaching now? Because there's so many lessons I feel like that are parallel.
The only way I can say it is this. The first time I had an experience, I came out of it and I was like, okay, I get it now, and I've done so much research. I watch every YouTube
And to
video.
specify a psilocybin experience.
Psilocybin
Yeah.
experience, not a reishi
Not
experience.
a chagachino at
Not a
everyone.
Chagachino
Yeah.
experience. But what I noticed was that obviously we're all one. It can change the world. It's so powerful. But one of the first things I said is like, wow, if since I was 16, I did therapy every single day for the rest of my life, that would be 1/1,000,000th of what I just experienced, right? And therapy is great, but it, in my opinion, can never touch the wisdom of what a psychedelic experience can show us. Not even near. I was just having this conversation with a medical student yesterday, and he goes, "Hey, what's your take on psychedelics?" And I was like, "Hey, bro, you just opened Pandora's box." I go, "You really want to know?" He's like, "Well, yeah, I went to Peru and did ayahuasca." And I was like, "Did you?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he started telling me all these things, and I was like, "That's really powerful." One thing I think we're really missing in mental health is the paradigm that we're working in is so antiquated. It's so antiquated, right? Someone presents with a disruption, right? Let's call it depression. And we're still working with the neurotransmitter hypothesis that, oh, well, your serotonin must be off. Let's just make sure that your body doesn't break down serotonin with these inhibitors, and take this and take it the rest of your life and you'll be fine. That's not medicine. That's not medicine to me. That's not healing, right? That's just simply treating your symptoms. And what we're doing with that is, to me, a travesty for what people can possibly be. Why did depression manifest, first of all, right? Okay, well, let's do it from a physical standpoint. Is it an issue with your gut, right? Because serotonin is being produced there. Do you have a disruption in your gut health? Are you experiencing massive dysbiosis? Well, okay, no. Well, then are you having inflammation in the brain many times together, right? Because I've always submitted more so that it's not neurotransmitters, it's the brain inflammation that's going on. Neurotransmitters are the downstream effects, right? But the root, many times physically, is the brain inflammation. Okay, well, that can come from environmental toxins, that can come from constant stress. But if it is coming from that constant stress, or it is coming from a deeper point, right? Let's say a trauma, why don't we address that? Why aren't we getting deeper into that trauma? You can't just give medication and tell someone to come home and go home. I know a lot of people I have family members who have been on depression medicine. I'm 36. She's been on it for 20 years and just now going, I need to get off of this. And guess what? It's a bitch to get off of. So is that medicine if we're just treating the symptoms, or can we do better? Now, we're learning more about psychedelic safety and effectiveness, right? There's a lot more monies and grants going into research. The work of MAPS is incredible. Now we're starting to have some scientific legitimacy to what ancient tribes have been saying for many, many years. And it's beautiful to see. And I can't wait to see how that unfolds for the next 5-10 years. But now that we know at least enough to know that we can treat our patients within their mental health in a safe and effective way, why are we still leaning on medications that are antiquated? Why are we still leaning on medications that should be given no more than 3 months? Why are we still leaning on something that is just treating the symptoms? When in front of us is the possibility or the ability to sit with a patient who's going through massive amounts of anxiety, massive amounts of depression, treat them, getting to the root of it, helping them integrating it, holding their hands so that they never have to experience it again, so that we don't have to give medication anymore. That to me is medicine. And I think that a lot of us are missing the boat because it's new and there's a lot of stigma. But man, like the tidal wave that is coming is game changing. The tidal wave that is coming will change people's lives forever. And I'm so excited to even just be a voice in that. So that's my scientific take on mushrooms and how it's going to affect the mental health of all of us. And to speak to the functional mushrooms, I love them too. I do them too, and they're powerful. And lion's mane is one of my favorite one. Cordyceps is one of my favorite one. The research we know on that, and it's great. It's great. It can stimulate new neurons in our brain. It's amazing. Cordyceps protecting us from radiation. That's amazing. We're inundated with it. But really, it's like if there was ever a time in human history for pop culture to begin its openness, and there's an ascension coming from underground like a mushroom, I can see like the cap of the mushroom like 10 feet deep, but I see it coming up really fast. And when it comes up, it's going to be bigger than the Empire State Building, and we're going to be like, holy shit.
And the reason why, so first of all, amazing. Yes, I totally agree. And what makes me excited about what you just said, given what you do for work, in your question that you said, why are we leaning on these Western medications for things that we have all of the medicine, natural medicine available to us right now? And it's because people don't know about them, and the education in this space it's getting way better. And there's obviously this massive surge of both functional mushrooms and psychedelics, and just the fungi kingdom as a whole is having a moment right now, which is amazing. But there's such a lack of education to overshadow all of these things that have just been ingrained in us for so long. It's very difficult to explain to someone who grew up in the middle of America that is on 4 medications that they should take a plant to, we talked about it earlier, like you thought the Jersey Shore was how the rest of the world lives. And people that live wherever they live, that's what they know, and that's what they grew up with. So to really change your mind, which psychedelics are so powerful at doing, you have to be presented with the right people in education, and also people that you resonate with. And why I'm excited about people like you and other, young hip folk like yourself, educating people about psychedelics and really speaking out to normalize them is because you are a voice of reason that built your audience in a completely different field. So you have legitimacy. People started following you because of health and wellness and all of these things, in a very similar way to how Michael Pollan's of the world and Tim Ferriss and these amazing people that totally changed the game in psychedelics started speaking out about the power of these medicines, and people followed them for a completely different reason, right? And I'm going to bring my mom into this because she's my favorite person to talk about. This story, but when I first started talking about psychedelics years ago, my mom, and this may resonate with a lot of people's parents that grew up in the 60s and 70s, she thinks cannabis is the devil. And it was very DARE programs, say no to drugs. That's what I grew up with. And my mom is one of the best case studies I know. I've had many people around me now at this point, and people like this as well, that was so close to the idea of psychedelics, but she read Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind with Me. She watched Fantastic Fungi, which is now on Netflix. It's one of the most popular shows on Netflix, which is insane. And over the course of a few years, it was like a few years, she opened to the idea of having a psilocybin experience, which she did, and it totally changed her life. And that's my mom. And so I'm firsthand able to experience the transformation that she went through. But that story, why it's important, is it speaks to the power of education. No one that has grown up a particular way is all of a sudden going to overnight open their mind to psychedelics or functional mushrooms, even for that matter. Most people still think those are gross. So, a lot of what we're doing with Multiverse and the brand that we're launching is educate people on functional mushrooms first as the gateway to understanding and being more accepting of psychedelics. But I think it's so important to focus on the education. And I guess my question to you based on that is, what do you think there needs to be more of? Are you planning to use your platform to speak more about, functional mushrooms, psychedelics? It still carries a stigma, right? Like it's the same reason why, this is a long run on question, I'm almost done, but it's the same reason why people are scared to speak out about certain beliefs about the pandemic and COVID, because there's this fear of getting canceled, right? There's this fear of getting backlash from speaking out about a subject that has a stigma.
Yeah. The way there is stigma, I remember that, I told my dad about the experiences, and he was like, "Oh no, Chris, you cannot do this. You're going to go crazy." And I'm like, no, it's okay, Dad. Like there's been a lot of research and science about, the set and the setting. Because if you think about the era of when hippies were just dipping into mushrooms, it was a totally different scene. Yeah, it was concerts, it was parties, but very few and far between were people really doing it in a setting that was intentional for healing, right? And it works differently. It works differently if you're in a group and you're just partying. The energy of the experience is different. But being in a healing setting, right? A ceremonial setting, you allow yourself to see things that are deeper within you. And I think it's so powerful now how a lot of the language is changing around it, right? More people are calling it medicine than they are drugs, right? Because if you understand that they can be medicine, well, then you go, okay, well, I thought they were drugs, but wait a minute, this healed my uncle's depression and it healed my sister's anxiety. This is more like a medicine because it is, because it has therapeutic properties beyond what we can understand, right? It has, again, 1 million therapy sessions in one session. Why? Because it allows the very thing that's protecting you to stop blocking that which you need to see, right? And that's the ego. The ego is the very thing that is holding us and protecting us, right? Recently, someone likened it to a neurotic mother. And it's true. It's like a neurotic mother. It says, don't cross the street. You can't cross the street because across the street are crazy people and you're going to get hurt. And I promise you it's not safe. Look, I told you, look across the street. There's a crazy person. I told you it's not safe. And it's blocking the vision of all like the really healthy minded people and will only focus and fixate on that crazy person you see across the street. So there's a lot of justification that the ego looks for. When you undergo an experience in a safe setting, you all of a sudden the neurotic mother just starts disappearing and fading. And then it's just you standing in front of the street. And you go, well, where'd that person telling me it's not safe to cross? Okay, well, there's no cars coming. It looks pretty safe. Let me explore what's across the street. And then when you get across the street, you get to see all the things that have been holding you back from experiencing all the beauty that is across the street. And that's the power, because no therapy session is going to fully remove your ego, right? That's why we do meditation every day. It's the practice to help remove the ego. So we get to show up in this world with a quieter mom, a quieter neurotic mom, right? But something like an experience can show you what a fully silent mom is. And a fully silent mom, you get to cross the street and you go, holy shit, mom was wrong. Yeah, there's a little unsafe area right there, but most of this is just blissful. Wow, I feel so good here. Like, is this what it feels like to not have a neurotic mom? And damn, like when you come out of that, how that changes you as a person, you feel safe in your body. You feel safe in this world. And what does a version of you that feels and looks safe look like? And how do you change your relationships with your lovers and your family and your workplace and your message to the world? I think a lot of us are just scared. And I do believe they're decriminalized for a bigger reason than anything, than just because the very thing that it shows us can change the world. And I think there's a lot of vested interests that are holding us back from experiencing that. Mm-hmm. The world would, if everyone did one journey together at the same time, the next day, child trafficking would be gone, poverty would be gone, war would be gone. Because at the very same moment, all of us would understand, one, we are all one. We're always connected to source. We're never alone. Love is all there is. Jesus Christ, like tell me one pharmaceutical medicine that'll teach us all of that in one sitting. That's the beauty of what psilocybin or medicinal mushrooms do.
Someone said to me a few years ago, if you could get the Senate of the United States to do a psilocybin assisted therapy session all together, it would solve most of the world's problems. And, obviously they said it out of humor because we're really far away from making that happen. But, why you've had all these insights and everything you said, it's so powerful. It's so real. It has the potential to help so many people. We've had so many people in and around our circle and community of friends that we've seen like firsthand, secondhand go through these experiences. And then to be able to actually experience their transformation in the world, it's really, really powerful. I think there's like two things to kind of double click on here. One is the importance of it being psychedelic assisted therapy. And so much of what we're looking at when we're looking at the research and all of the companies that are popping up in this space and all the funding going towards these FDA trials to try to legalize psychedelics, MDMA, psilocybin, other psychedelics, they're really hyper focused on psychedelic assisted therapy, having a human present as part of the experience. Because, you know, when you take mushrooms when you're 16 years old at a party, that is the difference versus taking mushrooms in an intentional setting. It's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
And so all of these drugs, you know, caffeine's a drug. Drug is almost like the wrong terminology, I feel like, but they have the potential to be abused if done incorrectly, and they have the potential to be completely life-changing if used correctly.
That's a setting. And let me make it very clear. As a doctor, I am all for assisted therapy, right? Where there's a professional who can really help you. This is why I'm trying in every way to educate the therapists, the psychiatrists, the psychologists who can sit with people and help them get through the things that are holding back their highest selves, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, whether it's OCD or neurosis, whatever you can ascend from all of that and it's, cut all those anchors. I am all for that. I want every therapist to have that in their hands and be able to help people. There is a lot of care that needs to be taken right now as it comes to the forefront, and a lot of conservative approaches that need to be taken. When I'm talking about this, I'm not saying go to your basement and just take a bunch of mushrooms and then see what happens.
Should we just cut that clip? And
Right.
I'm not saying this. Dr. G says, go to your basement and take a bunch of mushrooms.
Well, I'm waiting for someone to do that, right? But because you need somebody who's trained in that to help you.
Yeah.
If you have mental, emotional issues that aren't serving you anymore, and they're really taking a toll on your life, then look for someone who can sit with you, a professional who can guide you. I wouldn't suggest doing it by yourself, right? I don't think, as it comes to the forefront, we have to introduce it to society in a very conservative, safe way. And then maybe there's protocols that expand out to people.
And I'm excited about it. You know, we've been obviously keeping in touch on the progression of the entire space, but, you know, Rick Doblin just recorded a podcast a few weeks ago and was giving the latest updates on the phase 3 trials going on with MDMA specifically at MAPS. And it's just really exciting. The timeline is much quicker than a lot of people think. Some people think it's going to take much longer, but the good news is everyone seems to be in agreement that it's happening. You know, we are moving towards a world where in the future, whenever that is, whether it's in 5 years, whether it's in 3, whether it's in 15, that you will be able to have access to psilocybin, MDMA, other psychedelics as a part of therapy. One of the things that I've been thinking about recently that I'm just curious your perspective on, and I don't think we've talked about this before, is right now all these laws are being created for psychedelics use at service centers. So there's, you know, they're introducing all these bills to decriminalize, and then we're getting all of these trials approved to eventually legalize for medicinal use. But there's a very different use case, right? Between someone who has severe treatment-resistant PTSD, which a lot of these trials are being used for, someone who has experienced that and is, you know, can't get out of bed in the morning, versus someone that lives in Los Angeles, California, is a successful, you know, whether it is entrepreneur, creative, and is looking to up-level their life and is interested in microdosing and has had a really interesting experience that's changed their life in that way. What's interesting now is there's all these laws being created that are looping those two people into the same category. And it's a totally different experience. It's a totally different dosage. What are your thoughts on that, just in general? Like, you know, I guess it's just the question of microdosing versus macrodosing. If you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's why we need guidelines for people, right? And on top of that, we need to make sure that if, let's say I'm a therapist and I have a patient come in, I screen them for family history of psychosis, right? But we want to make sure that we are super conservative as soon as this comes out and as it comes out, right? So we want to make sure the dosage is right for this person. They're not going to feel like they lost themselves. They're not feeling like there's a tidal wave of fear and they never want to do it again. We want to know basically how we can introduce this gently, hold their hands, right? So they can have an experience where they go, that really did something. That was really therapeutic. Okay, see you next week or see you next month. We'll do it again. We'll maybe up it a little bit more and then we'll see. That's why we need professionals to hold hands right now as this is introduced. Now for microdosing, it can be helpful for a lot of people. And
can you explain why, from like on, you know, just talking about the plasticity of the brain? I think it'd be really helpful for a lot of people to understand, because people even come to the multiverse all the time and they're like, this chaga didn't get me high. I thought this was a microdosing supplement. Clearly, there is such a lack of education on what microdosing is. Can you explain what's happening in your brain when you take a microdose of psilocybin?
Yeah. So first we have to understand what happens when we take a macrodose.
Mhm.
And when our brain is flooded with psilocybin, it shuts off this default mode network, as you know, right? The Christian doctor, Christian brother, Christian son, Christian New Jersey, Christian Jersey Shore. All those stories just go.
Not the Christian Jersey Shore.
Not the Christian, no. And then it goes, and then all of a sudden it's the part of our brain that is more connected into experiential experiences, right? The no more I, the just it is, or just being is activated and fired up. Just like in meditation, when you're just like tapping in and you're like, whoa, where did I go? That wasn't me. That was way more expansive version of me. That's activated. Something of the sort happens with microdose. The constituents stimulate the brain still to become more hyperactive when it comes to focusing. So I took Adderall a few times in college to really help me just cram for that physics test where I needed to go over like 5 chapters in one night. Right. It's a crazy drug, but I would also liken it to a lighter, healthier version of it, because aside from the detrimental effects of long-term Adderall use and even the withdrawal effects from it, right? It stimulates our epinephrine, norepinephrine, the Adderall over and over, and our brain becomes so used to it that we're just so addicted to it. It's crazy that it's dangerous actually for people to be taking Adderall long-term. It should never be taken long-term. And it's crazy and a travesty for me in medicine that there's people out there who write Adderall medications based on a really, really short visit, right? Hey doc, I'm in school and I can't really focus and my friend said I should. Oh yeah, my friend said I should. I'm like, they don't say it, but I'm really like having trouble. I'm getting brain fog and I can't study. Oh, we're gonna give you Adderall because that's the protocol. It's crazy for me that like I remember in college they're like, I'm gonna get a prescription of Adderall. I know a doctor, and all I gotta say is a few things and he'll give it to me. That's crazy.
Or we would, when we were in college, we would pick someone out of the friend group. They'd be like, you're the one that's going to go to the doctor, tell them you have trouble focusing, and you get the prescription. And it's just, what's wild is even I have friends and family members and people that went to the doctor and they specifically said, no, I don't want to take Adderall. And the physician that they were seeing really, really encouraged it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even in younger children too.
Yeah.
And this is 12-minute visit. How in the world can you assess the safety and efficacy of something in someone long-term in 12 minutes? That I'm just trying to illustrate where in mental health we stand right now. I talked about antidepressives. I talked about anti-anxieties. Now we're talking about Adderall. Well, the beautiful thing when you take a microdose of mushrooms, and the reason I mentioned Adderall is because when I took it early on, when I was really like reading a lot and doing all this research and like diving so deep for hours and hours, and I needed to for patients, I likened it to like the focus of it without jitters, without feeling like I can't sit in my body, and without the long-term health effects, which is the most important thing, right? Without the withdrawal symptoms. So now when I need to focus or be present or be creative, right? That's when I'll usually utilize a microdose. But again, what it's doing is stimulating the brain's creativity network, right? So now I'm like, wow, I never saw things that way. Like, wow, I can really take an angle on this topic in a completely different way. So it activates those parts of your brains that have original thought and creativity, which is so amazing because now you understand why a bunch of executives or people working in Silicon Valley are taking them because this is their very job depends on creativity, right? Not only writing algorithms, but creativity within the business. And that's why we're seeing it. It's become so popular in Silicon Valley. Everyone takes it. Everyone takes it in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, like a lot of the best companies in the world attribute microdosing LSD and psilocybin to their success and creativity.
Right.
I think that one of the things that I've really realized about the people around me that love microdosing, that it's made a profound change in their life. And I'm curious if you think this is accurate or not. rather than when people go in to have a macrodose psychedelic experience where, often if you're doing a therapeutic setting, you're in an eye mask, you're in headphones, you are totally going through the layers of your own brain. You're having a completely internal experience. When you're on a microdose, you're often taking it and then going about your day-to-day life. So your brain is in this neuroplastic state, but you're in your life. So you're able to actually have that plasticity and habit interruption and change real time.
Exactly. And and the way I liken it is that there's people who microdose and they go straight to work, straight to a meeting,
Yeah.
and they perform better in the meetings. That's what
Yeah.
I want to. You don't take a microdose and then just lay down and put covers on you and go on a journey. That doesn't work that way, right? Because if it was, it would be a problem. All of the people in Silicon Valley would be laying on their floor having these experiences, right?
I think, sorry to cut you off, but I think why that is the case is a lot of people still associate cannabis with mushrooms. And so how a lot of people feel, if you've ever, smoked a bunch of weed, you feel like you want to lay down and watch a movie and eat a bunch of snacks.
Right.
People associate cannabis and shrooms in the same, mushrooms in the same category.
The very opposite.
Very.
I would liken it more to Adderall without the detrimental effects.
Yeah.
Right? With more creativity than what Adderall gives. And the focus is there and not the long-term effects, right? So, and the withdrawal effects. That's the way I'd liken it. So for me, my experience would be if I took a microdose and I went to the studio, I'd be like, okay, I feel very focused right now. And then I'm typing up things and I'm like, oh, I should actually take this angle. This is really I never thought about that. Why do this is not my way of thinking, put it that way.
You're connecting new neural pathways in your brain.
So it takes my way of thinking of like, if I didn't have that, into a newer, more congruent, right? More parallel, more connective, right? So it's all different. It's like, whoa, it's going this way. It's going this way. Now my point that I wanted to make is so much more eloquent or so much more creative, or I can illustrate the picture much better. But also I'm very present, very present. And me, I am the least focused person. I probably should have been prescribed something when I was younger, because if a noise is outside of my space, then I'll just run and go see the noise, and then I'll come back down, and then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, that's my phone. Let me go check Instagram, and then I'll put it down, and then I'm like, what's going on here?
I thought it was weird. I saw you on Abbott Kenny like chasing a bunch of squirrels.
That was me.
You're just getting so distracted.
That was me.
Yeah.
I'm very easily distracted. So for me, the biggest benefit has been, if I'm going to sit down, I can sit down for hours with it. Which is beautiful, because I'm like, oh, thank God. Or if I'm interviewing someone on my show, I can sit down and really hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
Not just think about my next question, but really like feel into what they're saying. And that's been the most beautiful part of it.
I think it's just really important to talk about and normalize, because microdosing for so many people I know are a critical part of their wellness routine. They're some of the smartest people I know. And it's just important to speak about it, because a lot of people still associate mushrooms and psychedelics with the stigma that was carried, in the 60s and 70s. So I think it's awesome that you're sharing all of this. And again, it's just the more information, the better, to help people make educated decisions. One of the things I want to pivot to before we close our mushroom talk is my favorite subject of all time, which is mold.
Oh, mold. Oh, okay. We are pivoting.
So and this I think is going to tie our talk together really beautifully, actually, because one conversation you and I had, I don't know if if you know where I'm going with this. You and I had a talk when we were driving. It was like 6 months ago, and we were talking about psychedelics and the opening that they make you feel, and reflecting on friends of ours that had transformational experiences, and we were talking about how the takeaway from psychedelic experience are that you pretty much want to be in nature with community. And then we were driving around looking at all these buildings somewhere in Santa Monica or something. And we're like, how funny is it that everything we're going towards in life is to be indoors in massive houses alone. So much of what we're building towards, the very opposite. And so when people have these psychedelic awakenings, they're like, wow, I want to, that's why Burning Man is so powerful for a lot of people. You're in community, you're out in the middle.
Fullest expression.
The fullest expression. And so why this ties back to mold is we were joking about this, and I don't even know, it was someone that came up with this about how mold, when, a building becomes infested with water, mushrooms, spores go and start to decompose the building. And we were like, is this the mushroom's way of telling us that we're not supposed to be indoors?
Right.
And, so I think that's really interesting. And there's also a lot of lessons. I've gone through toxic mold exposure. You've gone through toxic mold exposure, and everything we've talked about in this conversation, functional mushrooms, psychedelics, mold, it's all from the same kingdom. And there's lessons from each of them. Psychedelics from how to expand your mind, functional from how to heal your body, mold, maybe how to be more in community.
Right.
So I'm just curious your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, I think it was a brilliant association, because when you said it, and it was you who said it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. This is not to say move out of your house, live in a cave, but think about this. The more out of touch we are with nature, the more sick we are, right? And it's pretty simple. If we just take that rule of thumb, then there's a lot of things we can change in our life for the better. We are so out of touch with nature, right? We have skyscrapers and we don't even know our neighbor. We have skyscrapers and we don't even put our feet on the ground. We have skyscrapers where you don't even see a tree for, 3-4 blocks from us, right? Shout out to all the people in New York City. I get it. It's a great place to live. But also, you have to think about how to touch with nature you are, right? Because how we evolved was based on nature signals. And if we're not getting nature signals, our body's going, what the heck is going on? I learned, right, over thousands and thousands of years that sun comes, sun goes down, and every other signal in between, right? But when we're alone in an apartment, not knowing our neighbor, and then we have water damage.
And staring at a screen.
Very unnatural things for the human body. And then there's water damage. It's pretty interesting how mold can affect us, right? For me, I wonder to myself, if there was mold growing in a cave, but all things not equal, we are seeing the sun go up, go down, right? We're eating food from the land, whole foods, right? We're immersing ourselves in hot and cold. How would that mold really affect us? Is our resiliency stronger the closer we are to nature? I think the answer is yes. So the lessons that are coming from this kingdom are really interesting, because mold grows in water damaged buildings, right? In water damaged spaces. And how natural are those spaces? How natural are those materials in those spaces? And really, is mold in many ways, and this is to take 10 steps to take an ethereal sense to it, is mold here to teach us too? That what the heck are you doing? Why are you not in line with nature? You see how I make you feel? Go outside and feel better. Go get aligned with nature so you can build your resiliency. All of these things, I think it's a very fair point and a fair exercise to just think, what's the deeper energy behind mold? Mold sucks. I got super sick. You got
Mold
super sick.
definitely sucks.
But you know what I didn't do? Spend enough time in nature.
Yeah.
I didn't give enough reverence to my resiliency. I put the magnifying glass on what mold was doing to me and how to get rid of all the things with mold in my life. But I thought less about how to get closer to nature. And I think if I took the time back in March of 2019, if I took the time to go, all right, amongst all this, yeah, I'm throwing away all my moldy stuff. Let me go outside. Let me see the sun rise and the sun set. Let me make sure I'm moving a lot of the day, getting at least 10, 12,000 steps. Let me make sure that my diet is all from nature, nothing else. Make sure I'm breathing air.
All air, one hot bar. That's
right. All air, one hot bar. And make sure I'm in community. The very signals that our body has evolved with, let me give it to my body. And then see how resilient I am with mold. Because I can almost guarantee if I did all those things, even if I was in a moldy place or healing from mold, my resiliency or my cup would have been so much bigger.
Definitely. And I think, so all of those lessons really resonate. I definitely went through that experience as well. And you were such a huge part of that for me, teaching me how to build my resilience. Then we also realized during the experience that all of our friends also had mold exposure.
They were dropping like flies.
They were dropping like flies. Every new apartment we'd move into, everyone had it. And it was also a huge teacher for me, which I've expressed to you before, in this idea of destination happiness, which is like, I like to call it this. It's, when I feel better then. And mold is a very slow process. It's very long. Once the spores get in your lungs and can inoculate, it's really difficult to get it out. You can saw there's all these great healing modalities. So I learned a lot about my body and how to detox during this process. But the biggest lesson of all was to just really understand that I can still be happy when I'm not. First of all, I'm a healthy person, and this is in me, but my life has to go on, right? Like you can't pause your life, heal from mold, and then go back to it. There was this massive lesson in the mindset of when this happens then. And that's a lot of mindset a lot of people have around success and happiness. And it's when I achieve X, then I can be happy. And also, it's also hilarious that we're building a mushroom company and I was invested with mushrooms at the same time. But there's just a lot of lessons from it. And so to wrap up this conversation, I don't even know how long we've been talking, but I assume it's been about the time where we should wrap it up. But, mushrooms have been such an important part of your journey in subtle ways, between the mold and the functional mushrooms and the psychedelics and mine as well. They've been a huge part of community and lessons in happiness overall. And I'm just really excited about all the work that you're doing in the world, to educate people on all three of those things: mold, functional mushrooms, psychedelics, and just to help normalize stigmatized topics. It's just really important. And I love you so much.
I love you. And thank you for putting out this marketplace where we can all look, right? And we can go, oh, there's so many mushroom products coming out. And where do we go? And I love that you have that for us, because then I can educate everyone and take the stress out of it. And that's what we need. Especially as this starts growing, that's what we need. We need to know where to look and know that there's a community of people who are just as passionate. And I love that you're coming out with your own product coming up. And that's going to be really helpful for all of us too. So it's interesting. The most interesting thing I think is when you look at mold and you look at the mycelium and you look at the network, and then when you go through a journey, you realize that you're not separate and everything is one, and there's just one intelligence that is inspiring all things seen and unseen. And then you look at the mycelium network and you go, it's one intelligence. So it's not just like the doctrine of signatures, just what nature shows you in the physical manifestation of a plant, so too is the energy of that. And it's a powerful realization to know that I am you, you are me. You're just an energetic expression of an ocean. And you're just a wave, and I'm just a wave. And I'm seeing you, and you're seeing me. And maybe we go through our lives never realizing that we are the ocean and we are connected. But if mushrooms, psilocybin can give us the opportunity to just remember that, if not just for one experience, then for me, that's a life well lived.
Amen.
Amen.
No, I totally agree. I think that there's so many lessons from mushrooms, and I'm excited to have this podcast. I'm excited to have you as one of the first guests to take the intelligence of the fungi kingdom, the mycelium, everything that lives below ground, bring it above ground, and embody it as humans. 2 last questions for you.
Okay.
One is, what are you working on right now that you're really excited about? What's next for you? What's present for you?
Oh, I'm going to tell you something exclusive. So, I'm with the Swell Score, and the Swell Score is like the mushroom marketplace, but with everything: supplements, home stuff, food, protein powders, everything. We've expanded it. And
so the Swell Score is a curated marketplace
by scientists and doctors and nutritionists.
Got it.
And we all powwow once a week and we go, yes, this is a good product. Everyone says, yes, come on in. And we're bringing brands in left and right. But
you and our girl, Dr. Sam.
Yeah, Dr. Sam. And just recently, after 2014, as soon as I got my license, I signed up for this marketplace or this platform where all the doctors use them, all functional doctors, all naturopathic doctors. There's 2. And I signed up for it. And just last week, they go, I tried to sign in to buy some supplements for myself at wholesale cost, right? Which is great. 50% off. I'm looking and I'm like, okay, I need some minerals. I need some chlorophyll, maybe a little bit of digestive enzymes. And I can't log in. I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I can't log in. And then I can't log in. And then I send them an email and they go, oh, by the way, you're kicked off of this because of your association with Swell Score. So I was like, okay, talk about the neurotic mom. My ego's like, all right, bitch, you want to do this? So
Jersey Shore Christian
comes out. So we at the Swell Score decided to create a Swell Score Pro account. So now much like that company, we've opened up an account to have practitioners now have access to the best of the best for their clients. So
And
those
are you guys doing the wholesale margins as well on those?
the wholesale margins are just for the practitioner,
Just
but
for the
not for the
practitioners.
clients.
Okay, but that's the wholesale, or the Swell Score Pro is just for the
Swellscore
practitioners.
Pro is just for practitioners. So we're
Great.
basically doing the same thing, but our dispensary is way bigger. Our dispensary is not just supplements. Now we have things for the home like air purifiers, blankets. We're selling beds, right? We're selling
Wow.
protein powder. We're selling food and drink. It's just expanding. So it's not just supplement focus. It's everything focus. So I just wanted to communicate that because that was the genesis of it. Because I was like, it was rooted in like, okay, I see this. This was perfect, and in the way that it happened. Now we're going to take that energy and create something better. So that I've made a deal with a writer, and we're writing a proposal for my book. My book will be coming out, I don't know, maybe next year, the year after that. It depends on how much, but it's going to be a book focused on resiliency, focused on the very things that nature has given us, the cheap interventions that we can do that are foundational, that really lead to our highest expression of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. That's it. And it's going to be easy, and it's going to be a guidebook, and it's going to be something that someone's like, I feel off today. What am I doing that is not in line? Oh, let me just check my guidebook. Look at the guidebook and you go, yes, 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 yes.
So you have, pillars you've established, and
complete
people
pillars.
can really.
Exactly. So
Wow.
the book is coming out. We
I'm
made
sure
that deal.
mushrooms will be included in that.
It'll be in there somewhere. And those are the exciting things. Those are the really exciting things. And then just, nurturing more of a community, nurturing more education. The podcast Heal Thyself is doing very well. And we got awesome sponsors who I align with, who I say, yes, I love the work you're doing, your ethos. So all these opportunities are coming. Why? Because I've been in line with my highest expression. And, my focus has been, how can I serve the world? And if we can all look at that and go, how can I serve better the world? A lot of our human experience change, and all the things we ever wanted, they kind of just start coming to us because our focus has changed to a more altruistic, communal sense of purpose, which is really a massive key to this human experience.
I love it. And just in reflection, and over the few years that we've known each other, you've obviously had this massive, massive transformation since Jersey Shore Christian life into, your current really, really, really intelligent, game-changing Dr. Self that you are now. But even in the last few years I've known you, you've really gone through even a radical transformation. You just keep getting better and better and up-leveling and keep adding on things to help more and more people. And you've reached millions of people through your podcast, which is called Heal Thyself, or as your dad would say,
Help yourself.
Oh, I thought it was heal that stuff.
No,
Help
heal
you-
that
help
stuff would
you.
be even funnier.
Help yourself.
Quick story, we're in Thanksgiving and we have all the family, and my dad's girlfriend's son is there, and we're all at the table, and I'm sitting there, and he goes, I hope my dad's listening too. And he
We got to
goes,
send it to him.
he goes, hey, you listen to my son podcast? And then he goes, no, I haven't actually. What's the name? And before I say anything, he goes, it's called Help Yourself. And then I'm sitting there, and my friend's next to me. She starts cracking up. I go, Dad, it's Heal Thyself. And he's like, oh yes, Heal Thyself.
So are we going to name the book Heal Thyself or Help Yourself?
Maybe both.
Maybe both.
Yeah.
That can be the subtext.
Yeah. Help heal yourself. Help heal thyself.
Help heal thyself.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on everything you're working
Thank you.
on. I'm so excited to be a part of it. I'm so excited to have you involved with everything we're doing
Thank you.
at the Multiverse, and so much more to come
Thank you for having me. I expect to be on every other week.
every other week. No doubt.
I'm the resident guy here.
You're the resident doctor. Where can people find you online and keep up with everything to help themselves?
Instagram at Dr.Gonzalez. Podcast, Help Yourself. It's Heal Thyself. And Swell Score is the platform. And man, I think I'm on Twitter, Dr. Gonzalez. But anywhere where I can have a platform to educate, I'll be there. Except Facebook, but I'll be there. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
All
Do
right.
you want to hang out tonight?
Yeah, let's hang out later.
Thank you so much for listening. That was Dr. Gonzalez, one of my closest friends, and someone I'm just really inspired by, that's teaching the world about mushrooms, about community, about everything in between, from wellness to psychedelics to functional medicine. And can't wait to see what he does next.
Thanks for diving into the multiverse with us. If you're interested in being a future guest on the show, sponsorship, partnership, or you're just mushroom curious, we're always looking to expand our mycelium network. Find us on Instagram at Multiverse or online at yourmultiverse.com. See you next week.